Hello and welcome to the first meeting of February, Monday, February 2nd of the Moscow City Council. Thank you for being here. Before we begin, I'd like to lead with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up, we have the consent agenda. So these are items that are considered routine in nature. They have also been vetted by either the Public Works and Finance Committee or the Administrative Committee, both of which are made up of 3 members of City Council. And so they meet on the 2nd or 4th Mondays of the month. In this case, they would have met 2 weeks ago, last week, thank you. The admin committee would have met last week to review a number of these items. Those are recorded. They are on the YouTube. If you'd like to review them for dialogue, any member of council can remove any item on the consent agenda for further discussion if so desired. And I'm ready if anyone feels moved any sort of way.
I move that we approve.
Second.
Any further questions or discussion?
I just want to draw attention to item D, which is this Saturday, which is Moscow Winterfest, sponsored by the Chamber from 4 to 8 downtown. It's
12 to 4.
12 to 4, pardon me. There we go. 12 to 4, nice catch. It's one of Moscow's premier events throughout the year. So if you can make an appearance, it's great. So
Family friendly. Love it. All right. And without further discussion, anybody? We'll call for a vote. I've got Sandra on my randomizer list. Here we go. Sandra.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
Bryce.
aye.
Sage.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Thank you. Consent agenda is approved as presented. Also, if you'd like to follow along, we have print copies of the agenda in the thingamajig outside the council chambers. Next up, we have public comment. We set aside up to 15 minutes for anyone who would like to come and give remarks, as long as those remarks are not related to something on the in front of the Board of Adjustment or on Planning and Zoning's agenda. It's because those 2 commissions are quasi-judicial. So I have a fancy timer, but I won't set it up if there aren't any takers for public comment. Come on over, give us your name and where you reside. And hopefully you'll be able to see the 3-minute timer. We'll keep it pointed your direction. I love it.
I'm Tim Park, 403 East A is my address. Good evening, Mayor and the council and members of the audience. The month of January was taken up by all sorts of things, and there was 0 meetings. And I worked up a good comments on around Martin Luther King birthday about having the council consider what's going on in Gaza, but I'll table that for another time. I wanted to speak to the remarks that the Chief of Police Dollinger had on, I guess it was purchasing body cameras. It was sort of new information to me. I didn't know much about body cameras, but I think there are probably some folks in the audience, some folks in the city of Moscow who want to know what's going to happen to all of the data that's collected by the body cameras. And there are probably some people like myself who understand that body cameras only give the officer's point of view, not the point of view of the person being chatted with. So I'd like the council to kind of consider those aspects and maybe come back at some point and comment on them so that we in the general public can get a better notion of what's going to happen with this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other takers for public comment tonight? Going once, going twice. All right, the fancy high-tech timer goes away. Next up, we have the Citizen Commission report from the Moscow Arts Commission with Megan Cherry and Sonia Ford.
Good evening. This evening, I am pleased to introduce our newest MAC chair, Sonia Ford. Sonia is, you may know her, lots of folks in the community know her as the managing director at Moscow Contemporary. Sonia also has a degree in painting from Yale University, so that's really impressive, and it's wonderful to have her here on the Palouse. Sonia joined the Moscow Arts Commission in 2020 and jumped right into projects that were pandemic-related projects, such as little art toolboxes that we were distributing to folks to make artwork at home, and really jumped in with a lot of creativity. One thing I remember from her initial sort of entry into the commission was a robust discussion about the artistic merits of googly eyes. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sonia for an update on the MAC.
Thank you, Megan. Welcome, Sonia.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm very happy to be a part of the Moscow Arts Commission. If I had ever known that I'd be public speaking, I would not have joined. So with that said, we're just going to do the report, and we'll look back on some things, great things that happened in 2025. So right now, our 2026 roster includes Cindy Barnhart, Michelle Chamberlain, Kim Crimmins, myself, Sandra Stoops, Erica Wagner, Donna Woolston, and Stefan, I don't know how to say his last name.
Yahtzee, just like the
Thank
game.
you. We do have room for up to 12 Arts Commission members, so if anybody is interested, it is a really great way to serve our community. So we're going to look at some volunteer hours. These are the volunteer hours that are recorded that the Moscow Arts Commission members complete. However, we do have other volunteers that wouldn't be included in this, such as previous Moscow Arts Commission members and other community volunteers. Okay, so for 2025, we had 5 exhibitions, as well as the 3 exhibitions in the box gallery, which if you guys haven't checked it out, it's a little window outside of Megan's office. And then you can see the numbers down below of all the exhibitions. Let's see, participation generally is growing every year. And speaking of that, so Plus Plein Air started in 2010 and is operated in partnership with the University of Idaho College of Art and Architecture. And it has grown every single year since we started. It's a pretty big deal. And what's really exciting is in this past year, we've doubled the number of students. So that's really wonderful to see that participation. So if whoever doesn't know, we have a really awesome public art collection. It's very varied and extensive. We have 5 murals, 31 permanent collection artworks, 23 vinyl wrap locations, 13 bus shelter artworks, 4 art on loan plinths, and 144 portable collection artworks. So our vinyl wrap installations, we're looking ahead for 4 new wrap installations in 2026. And these are installed on traffic signal boxes at intersections throughout the city. We have 2 really exciting, significant public art calls open for this year. We have the City Shop mural, Polk in Public, which will be put on a new concrete wall, which you can see in the first image. And then we have a 3-dimensional artwork to be installed in front of the police station. This dedication will coincide with the 20-year anniversary commemorating a tragic incident in Moscow and the impact it had on the officers and the community members. And I jumped ahead. This past year, we welcomed our newest poet laureate, Miriam Akerval. In 2026, they will read at the In Stereo exhibition and Poetry in the Park. And this is very exciting too. The Mayor's Arts Award is happening in 2026. There are 7 different categories: individual excellence in the arts, art advocacy, outstanding achievement in arts education, youth excellence in the arts, outstanding college of university students in the arts, outstanding contributions as a business, club, or nonprofit organization, and lifetime achievement in the arts. I've nominated people for this in the past, and artists truly appreciate, and the community members that support them really appreciate this program. Okay, and in 2026, things to watch for. It's going to be exciting. A Moscow Poet Laureate, the new vinyl wraps, the public art selection, the art project development at East City Park, the stage, which everyone is vested in, and the 3rd Street Gallery exhibitions, and of course, Plus Plein Air and Mayor's Arts Awards. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonia.
Sonia.
Does
Questions?
anyone have any
Yeah.
questions for
Like,
Sonia?
can I run away?
Yeah. We'll try to make it painless. Any questions, folks? Yeah, Sandra.
This is a painless question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, thank you for chairing this. This is great, and I'm excited that you're here and all the work you're doing at Moscow Contemporary. Out of all of these things, do you have one thing that you're the most excited for?
Well, I that's hard for me. I would say it would be the Mayor's Arts Awards. I just love like the people coming together. I enjoy reading all of the nominations, and there's been people in the past that are very worthy that we could nominate them again if they didn't get the awards. So that part I've always been really excited about. I love attending the awards events too.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Right.
More of a comment, and just a comment of gratitude. I was lucky enough to be the council liaison for all of last year for the MAC, and it was great watching you all work. And I saw a lot of these projects come through, and the way that you all collaborated and kind of worked off ideas and assessed kind of what was presented was a real treat to be part of. So I just want to commend you on the work that you do, and I'm excited to watch for all these things in 2026.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. You're not Bryce. Copy paste. Drew. My bad. It's only a matter of time.
We talked about this.
We can put it on the bingo card. Yeah. Mark it off. True.
Well, thank you for being here. I'd just like to say we as a community, we are the heart of the art. We're a community that believes in art, and I think the MAC really supports that and follows through. And I'm glad that we have a community that enjoys art. So that's all I wanted to say. Just a compliment. No questions. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
I can't
Yes,
tell
yes,
if
yes,
this
I
is
will.
not a requirement, but I
No.
see eye contact, and if you don't want to give me a Scott, go for
ahead,
it.
Drew.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just pay it forward. Scott, all you.
The volunteer hours, I was on the Transportation Commission for 4 years, and there's no way, I don't think we had the 186 in those 4 years, let alone in 1 year. So I'm very appreciative of the effort that your entire commission is putting forth. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, everyone on the commission is very passionate about what we're doing.
I do have a question, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Drew. Bryce, go for it. That was a joke for the that time was a joke.
What is a plinth?
Megan, will you explain what a plinth is?
That came up in the presentation. I don't know what that is, and I would like to know.
Yeah, a plinth is just a base for a sculpture.
Great.
Like somewhat similar to a pedestal, but pedestal would think more of as being something that we move around in a gallery. A plinth is more of a permanent base for.
So that was in reference to the art installation at the
Intermodal Transit Center.
and also
Yes.
upcoming at the police station.
The plinths are more at the transit center. So if you go out there right now, you'll see a couple, two of them are basalt with
Got it.
like a weathering steel plate on the top, and then two others that are just steel that are mounted on the ground. And so they're permanent bases for sculptures that change out annually.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Of course. Evan, go for it.
Thank you for the presentation. I like the variety of opportunities there are for both participants and observers in these. And I would just like to remind you or ask you what we as council can do to increase visibility or increase participation or areas like that you think, other than in our daily dealings, that we can help promote these. Because as a couple of my fellow counselors pointed out here, this is one of the things that sets Moscow apart in a little way. So just, at least for me, please let us know either now or in the future things we can do to help promote these.
Yeah, absolutely. So from what I've noticed with service with the Arts Commission as well as with Moscow Contemporary, it is very much talking to people about it. The public art maps are really cool. When I was located downtown, I was able to direct a lot of tourists that were coming through Moscow to check things out that way. Yeah, just brag about us. Yeah, brag about what we're all doing.
Easy to do.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Groovy. Thank you, Sonia.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, item 4 of 6, total 6 items on our agenda tonight is the Woodbury First Edition Final Replat and Final Major PUD, Planned Unit Development Amendment with Mike Ray. Hi, Mike, welcome. And I'm so sorry. Scott, do you have something you need to tell me?
Madam Mayor, I have a conflict of interest and I'd like to recuse myself.
Ruby, thank you. Okay, Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. So before you tonight, we have the Woodbury First Edition Final Plat and Final Major PUD Amendment Review. So a little bit of background where we've come up to this point. On September 20th of 21, the council approved the annexation, comp plan, designation, rezone, and PUD for Woodbury First Edition with no conditions. The council approved the Woodbury First Edition preliminary plat with 3 conditions. And all those conditions have since been satisfied. As you recall, the turn lane from Mountain View Road onto Sloniker Drive northbound, as well as the curbing, sidewalks, and road widening to the east side of Mountain View Road, essentially from the Herc to the intersection of Sloniker. And then October 17th of 22, Woodbury First Edition received final plat and final PUD approval from the City Council with one condition. On June 25th, 25, the Planning and Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing to consider the request of Woodbury Land LLC for a major plan unit development amendment and a preliminary subdivision replat of the existing Woodbury First Edition subdivision. P&Z recommended approval of the major PUD amendment with no conditions and recommended approval of the preliminary replat with one condition. And that condition was the applicant be required to update the existing stormwater report for the subdivision and include any mitigation actions necessary to ensure that stormwater facilities will have no downstream adverse impacts subject to the approval of the city engineer. So City Council then conducted the public hearing July 21st of last year and approved the major PD amendment with no conditions and approved the plat with the same conditions recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then on November 26th of last year, the applicant submitted the final subdivision replat and the final major PD amendment to be reviewed by the commission as well as the council. As you recall, this is the Woodbury subdivision highlighted in red, just at the edge of the city limits boundary. Access from Sloniker Drive. See the location here, Lanny Drive here to the southwest, Orchard Avenue and Arborcrest Road and Trail Road here to the north. This is first phase of a large master plan subdivision. So Google Earth image, a little more recent than our imagery, so you can kind of get an idea how it's currently developing. Sloniker Drive's been extended into the subdivision, Woodbury Drive. These are the public streets, and then you have various private circles and drives as well. There's about 15 homes that are various stages of construction, all single family. And originally there was 4 different types of lots. So there's a neighborhood business zone portion near the town center here to the northwest. And then you had cottage, garden, and estate lots essentially intermingled throughout the development. Typically the estate lots are on the outer perimeter just to provide a transition from the existing lots within the Blackwood addition there to the south. So the preliminary replat and preliminary major PUD amendment increased the total number of lots in the Woodbury First Edition subdivision from 78 to 107. That was 29 lots increased, but a prior minor PUD amendment, which was approved April 9th of 25, reduced the total number of lots from 79 to 78. As a result, there was 28 lots compared to the original development approval that were approved. And the final replat and the final major PUD amendment included the same number of lots, so there's been no change essentially from the preliminary approval. So as you recall, the main areas which were amended with the preliminary approval were around the town center. So you've got the Central Park area. We'll start with Southwick Court here and move counterclockwise. So the only change is essentially the name as well as some carports. Apparently there's a need for carports for these single family dwellings. They're primarily cottage, small lots, and small house designs. Access from Primrose Court. So that was the change, Southwick to Primrose. And then you can see the architectural renderings of the carports, keeping in the architectural character of the subdivision. You can see those located here and here. Moving on to the Willows. So these are 4 cottages, 2 stories in height, so first and second floor, 1 bedroom and an office with living quarters on the first floor, and then all parking off of the private street there to the north. These remained unchanged from the preliminary approval as well as the elevations. Brings us to the Central Park townhomes, which front on the Central Park. Park Place has been changed to Village Place, so the name of the private street here, which circles the Central Park. You can see it's a mixture of townhouses and what the applicant's calling mews, which are essentially small cottages, and then some rear-loaded detached garages on these townhouses here to the east. So this is the same site plan, floor plans as the preliminary approval. Once again, we've frozen here. Okay, moving on. So these are the floor plans for the townhouse units. It's visualized as second or third floors, so ranging between 2 and 3. These are the same floor plans which were submitted before. Elevations are the same as well. Obviously, this is the second floor model. And then this brings us to the more of the town center. So this is the neighborhood business zone, mixture of townhouses with mews, as well as townhouses here. This is Woodbury Drive, and then more of storefront, commercial on the bottom floor, office, residential on the second and third floor is what's envisioned here. And then the last area is really the Woodbury Drive townhouses and recreation and cottages. So a 4-pack of townhouses here, 2 cottages down to the south, and then a indoor pickleball court planned for the middle parcel there. And so once again, these have remained unchanged from the preliminary approval. So as part of the amendment, the applicant had submitted a parking plan, which pretty much inventoried the off-street and on-street parking throughout the subdivision. You can see there was 41 temporary parking spaces, so there's some concern over the amount of off-street parking, which would service the town center, mainly the commercial neighborhood business lots. And so the applicant volunteered to create 41 temporary spaces on that west side. I think it was Rosemary Drive. The applicant since amended that in order to include permanent spaces around the town center, around the central park. So instead of temporary, these would be permanent, and there's 45. So just gives you a better idea. They're all angled, and then you have parallel parking on this side of the street as well. This is a one-way street. So an increase and more permanency there. So staff feels like that is a win for as far as the off-street parking. Other point of note here is the Woodbury Drive section. So applicants proposing concrete pavers for the sidewalk and the furnishing zone. Typically in urban environments, we allow concrete pavers for the furnishing zone, which is pretty much between the sidewalk and the curb, where you have benches, street trees, things of that nature, but we don't allow concrete pavers, just a standard sidewalk. And so the applicant's requesting that deviation from our street standards, just for that 1.5 block section of Woodbury Drive. And so, like I mentioned, the public street section shows the standard sidewalk. Any deviation with the adopted standards needs to be approved by the council. Engineering department recommends the standard sidewalk be constructed, but if the council decides to approve the concrete pavers, staff has 2 recommended conditions. The first one, that the pavers be installed upon a layer of concrete to prevent settling, and the developer shall enter in a development agreement which requires long-term maintenance of the pavers to be the responsibility of the developer. So getting back to the preliminary plat, replat condition. So it was the applicant be required to update the existing stormwater report for the subdivision and include any mitigations actions necessary. The engineering department has reviewed the method used by the design engineer to calculate the post-development runoff coefficient, which assumes development of the entire subdivision rather than a weighted average. And they've determined that the revisions to the stormwater report are not necessary at that time. So after reviewing, comparing the preliminary replat and the preliminary major PUD amendment that was approved with a final replat, final major PUD amendment, staff's determination that the proposal is substantially consistent with the application that provided preliminary approval. January 14th of this year, the commission recommended approval of the proposal with no conditions. Staff's recommendation that the council approve the final replat and final major PUD amendment with one condition, that a standard sidewalk shall be constructed upon the northern Woodbury Drive road section instead of the proposed concrete pavers. Of course, as I discussed previously, if the council chooses to grant the deviation to the street standards and approve the concrete pavers, staff has those 2 recommended conditions, which I've shown here again. So certainly try to answer any questions you have about this.
Thanks, Mike. Questions from council? Evan, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. Do we expect, this has been a long time in the pipeline, do we expect next stages of Woodbury to be started before this one is built out? Or are we going to wait for this to be built out? Do you have any sense of that?
Applicants here, so you could certainly ask that question, but it's my understanding that, the next phase will proceed prior to the complete development of the first phase. So
And then a question, is these units being sold as a complete unit, or can someone buy lots and build basically according to their plans? What's the,
it's my understanding there's a common theme, and the developer of the subdivision pretty much builds the homes that are being built within the subdivision. But yeah, certainly the applicants here to.
all right, well, I can go
Elaborate.
on through other things. I was, once again, a similar thing, trying to anticipate or guess the timeline for a build out. And then I had a question about the park-like area. Is that going to be maintained by the homeowners association, by the city? Who will own that at the end of the project?
It's within a tract, so it's the homeowners association. So Village Place, the drives here, the roads are private. The only public streets here are Woodbury and then Sloniker. So this is all going to be maintained by the homeowners association, everything that you see here, with the exception of the public streets on either side.
So including that potentially lawn area inside.
All the open space in the middle is the homeowners association responsibility.
And then one more thing, if I could, for the staff's proposal for mitigating the potential problems of the pavers, without knowing exactly what there'd be, the language that suggests that'll be the responsibility of the developer, that at some point in the future, that would end because the developer's gone. So I would prefer language that says it is the responsibility of the homeowners association.
That was really the intent.
Right, and I think by putting the developer in there, we put a timeline on it that, that it is too short.
But I'll clarify, Evan, it'll be up to you to decide
Right.
if you want to grant the exception at all. So, does the Wentz crew want to, I'm looking to my legal counsel. Am I able to invite up our applicant to answer the applicant for questions? Groovy, would you like to come and provide context for any of Evan's questions?
Mayor Lewis, I have a couple follow-up questions, but.
Okay, let's get through Evans and then we'll switch gears if that's all right. Hello, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. My name is Levi Wentz, representing Woodbury. My residence is 1580 South Piccadilly Circle. So I can go ahead and answer some of Evan's initial questions. So as far as phasing or additions, there's different terminology that's used here, but we expect that each addition with Woodbury is sort of on a rolling schedule. And so we're already working on our next addition. Part of what we're looking at is one slice, maybe a quarter slice of what Woodbury is. Woodbury was designed to work in its totality. And one of the challenges that we'll have with the neighborhood business zone is, of course, having enough homes on the ground to make it work. And so we want to get some of it started and show that it's there, because it's obviously going to be an amenity to the citizens of Moscow in that area, as well as the residents of Woodbury. But we don't expect to be completely done with it before we're on to the other phases. So timeline of build out, that's very hard to answer, but guessing at absorption rates in Moscow, we've guessed 15 to 20 years for the build out of the entire Woodbury subdivision, which is covers about 82 acres. Only the first addition has been annexed into the city so far. So that's about 21 acres. And then to your last question about developing and building lots, we are the developer as well as the builder out there. And so we're not intending at this point to sell any lots. We want to, as Mike said, maintain a cohesiveness of design and quality that's being shown out there.
Thank you, Levi. Any lingering questions, Evan?
Well, I just had a follow-up that I'd have to run by, I guess, the city. So if they were to change because they thought it was a better opportunity to start selling lots with maybe requirements to build what they have, maybe it would speed up. Would that require changes that would have to come before us?
Bill or Mike, but I'm guessing there's a,
Evan, could you restate the question? It was a little unclear.
Well, if the developer and builder decides that the process needs to be changed for, I don't know what reason, and they would start selling vacant lots or lots to other builders, potentially contractors to build within their framework, would that require them to come to us to grant that permission?
Your Honor, no, it would not require modifications to the PUD if they wanted to sell individual lots and then have contractors build homes that are shown as the sample elevations and homes that are going to be built in the project. If they wanted to deviate from the approved home plans or designs, that would require a modification of the PUD. But there's not a legal obligation that the developer be both, the builder and the seller of the lot. They could separate that, but the homes that would be developed would have to follow what is been approved in the PUD.
thank you, Bill. Okay, Sage, what do you have?
So-
And Levi, and questions for Levi or Mike? Which way are we going?
For Levi.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ruby.
So thanks, Levi, for being here, providing us some answers. I just had a question about the timeframe specifically for this first edition relative to this change of 78 to 107 lots. So that additional 28 modified, 29 modified to 28 with a minor PUD. How does that change the timeframe for completion of that first edition?
Well, obviously it pushes it out. Trying to guess as to the absorption rates here in Moscow is hard. One of the things that actually gave us back in 2019, there was a study done, a housing feasibility for both Layton and Whitman counties, and it showed that we were in a massive deficit, housing shortage, as the entire nation is. And so we know that we need to build more homes. It's unclear once we start building more homes, how quickly those start getting sucked up. And so we're going to do our best to build as many as the market allows us to build. As far as for this first phase, I think one of the things, there was a couple areas, back in 2020, we got our initial approval, and we're looking at these 80 acres and trying to guess 20, 30 years into the future, what this is going to be. And so over the last 5 years since 2020, a lot has changed. And so that is sort of what this first major PUD amendment, we've learned a lot. We've been around studying, our craft and bettering our craft, and also looking at the Moscow market. So our challenge is twofold. We're trying to build something that lasts, not only something that lasts, but hopefully it gets better over time. That's our goal, as well as something that serves Moscow and the needs of Moscow. We have a real housing needs here, and so we want to serve that the best way we can. And we think that's building stuff that's going to last and stand the test of time. Part of that is housing costs have continued to rise, and affordability is a real issue. And so the one way that we can get more affordable without, dropping our quality is just simply downsizing. And so that was what was reflected here. That's maybe half of the change. The other half of the change is the neighborhood business zone. Originally, we were way under our density amounts back in 2020 when we first got our approvals, and we didn't know what the neighborhood business zone was going to look like. And so single family lots were sort of just plotted through that area, knowing that we had room to come back and tighten it up later. We just didn't know exactly what that form was going to be.
Okay. So I guess to clarify, maybe for that first edition, you guys were thinking, okay, completion by 2028 or 2030 or
Sure.
something. Is it another couple years now with this change, or do you have any sense of that? Or
I'll say that our goal right now is to be building 20 homes a year. That's what we really would like to get to. We've been building over in Pullman the last couple of years, and so we had a couple of projects over there, and we've been building about 12 homes a year. And I think that we're certainly capable of doing 20 if that's what the market allows us to do.
And then my other question is with relation to the pavers. So I think there was some
concern about this, from what I recall with P&Z, relative to ADU compatibility and how that's to be maintained. Just thinking about people as they get older. Is that something that you have the ability to break down for us? Maybe the difference between, say, sidewalk that's conventional and pavers, and how that may or may not impact those with disabilities?
Yeah, and it would be, Mike can hop in if I miss anything here. So certainly these are going to be public sidewalks still, and so we're going to be building them to ADA standards. I think the pavers, there's obviously several different pavers that we can use. I don't think the in texture would be so different than the rough, pebbled sidewalks that we have in our beautiful downtown area. And so I think it'd certainly meet ADA compliance, and we'd be held to those standards.
Thank you.
And if I might just speak on the pavers really quick. One of the most important things to us, we want to build high quality homes, beautiful homes, but I think the neighborhood design is one of the things that we're most focused on, and we want to really get the bones of this subdivision right. And something like the pavers is one of those natural things that just insinuates to us as humans that this is a more urban environment, and that's what we want to evoke out there. The hope is that this becomes a secondary business zone for Moscow that serves all of Moscow. And so this is one of those opportunities that we see it as to do that. It's going to speak to people immediately as they step foot on it that something has changed. And we would expect that the HOA, covers any changes long term. If there's damages or something like that, I think that there's a healthy balance, with the developer and the city. You guys, of course, want to watch your budgets and that sort of thing. And we also all take pride in our city and want to build something that's beautiful. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Thanks, Levi. Drew, you got a question?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Go for it.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike, for the presentation, for also being here, representing Woodbury. So I think this might be directed to Mike and to Woodbury. I'll throw the question out and let you guys decide. So I will admit I didn't catch this when I read the packet. I read it speedily. So I understand the design of what we're considering, what the city's recommending for how the pavers, like the constructability of it. The part that I'm now have a knowledge gap on is, I've been in a lot of urban environments. I've studied urban planning. So we sit here and the pavers, I think how the city's proposing for them to be constructed is going to eliminate most of my concerns with the pavers. But the part of how, if something goes wrong, if a snow plow, right, catches an edge of that, hits them up, how, of course, you want to maintain a look, but what's that going to look like in 50 years? What's that going to look, let's say 10, 20, 60 years? What's that going to look like for, that is through the HOA, or that would be covering those costs to maintain the pavers long-term? Just not when you still have lots to sell, but is it going to be there when lots are done and there's going to be allocation of funds to fix those things?
Yeah, and Evan hit it from the top. The HOA needs to be the one that's ultimately puts that bill, because they're going to be around while we're dead and gone. And so I think that the expectation would we work that into the HOA budget. It's part of the HOA covers it, and they know that they're in charge of that. The natural state of our world is decay, so I expect there to be maintenance, and there will be a maintenance budget for the pavers put in there as well. And yeah.
Okay, so whenever this is built out, right? I'm not asking for a timeline. I get construction and I get all those things, and I understand what market we're dealing with, but before it's built out, that HOA, right? Let's go back to the analogy. I find it rare that a snowplow would actually do this much damage, but I'm thinking of another analogy. But if it's not all built out, and so that HOA before all of it's built out and it's 82 acres, the HOA would be required to take before it's built out. And when would that be implemented into the HOA?
I think it would be implemented upon installation of the pavers, and a maintenance budget would be added to the annual assessment for the HOA. So right now we're managing the HOA until 100% of the lots are sold, and so the developer will be managing the HOA and adding these things into the HOA until 100% of the lots are sold, and then it gets handed off to the HOA and they maintain it from there.
Okay, that answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
1 second, Evan, let me see, Bryce or Sandra, any questions?
I was going to ask about parking, but that got addressed.
Okay, groovy, Sandra. Okay, Evan, what do you have?
Just a quick one. You say 100% build out, that's when the HOA is run by the homeowners. Do you mean 100% of this first section?
It
Or-
would be 100% of this first section if this first section was all that was built.
Right.
But the documents, of course, speak to a larger master plan that if other portions are accepted by the city council and annexed into the city, that it will be, part of the master.
Yeah,
HOA.
thanks for
okay.
the
Subject to-
clarification.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Levi. Any further questions for Levi or the applicant or Mike? Okay, groovy. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
All right, discussion, deliberation amongst council. We've got a couple of options in terms of, Mike, could you can you give us the conditions? Yes, so either standard sidewalk, which would be approval without conditions. Am I getting this right? Regulars or with the pavers would come with the conditions as outlined. I'm sorry, council recommendation, staff to council recommendation, follow the slides, not my brain. With one condition as proposed by staff or no conditions or other.
Once again, I'll
Sure, Evan.
start if I may. Thank you. My feeling is I would prefer pavers. I can see how it's a vital part of the design element. I'd also like to allow them to put pavers in how they want. I don't want to insist upon a concrete base when it may not be necessary. And if it's their responsibility, and then the responsibility of the homeowners association, and that the pavers are failing on a compacted sand or soil cement base, they could go back and put in a concrete base. So my feeling is the pavers are a good idea, not cobblestones, but smooth pavers, and that the requirement for a concrete base may not be necessary. Just a personal thought.
Sure, and can I ask a clarifying question to Mike briefly? The conditions come from the engineering department, grounded, pun intended, in their existing certifications and things like that, right? Like this is not,
Specification.
thank you, this is not,
Concern with settling, and affecting ADA throughout those routes. And so those are the primary concerns.
and the
Naturally,
base
you do
layer,
have some settling with concrete pavers generally.
and so the concrete base is stemming from mitigation. Welcome back, everyone. We are still at the February 2nd meeting. And we are continuing our discussion on the regular agenda item 4. And so at this point, I'll entertain a little more council debate and discussion or a motion. So Sandra,
Just in my opinion, I feel like we've had some pretty good debate on this. I'm just going to throw out a motion that we approve the final replat and final major PUD amendment with one condition, that be a standard sidewalk be constructed upon the northern Woodbury Drive Road section instead of the proposed concrete pavers.
I have a motion from Sandra. Do I have a second? For the standard sidewalk.
Is this what was, if my memory serves me, is this what we were talking about in admin? This was what we approved from admin?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
we discussed
I'll
this
second that motion.
Motion from Sandra, second from Bryce. Further discussion. Okay, my high-tech vote randomizer has and let me just restate item 1, regulars, the motion in front of us. Okay, so high-tech randomizer says Drew.
No.
Evan,
No.
Sage,
No.
Bryce,
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Okay, that motion fails. Further discussion, other motions?
Could we go, sorry, forward one slide here?
For the conditions on there as well.
Yeah.
Mike, can we go with the cheat sheet?
Concrete paver recommended
Mhm, the-
condition.
Yeah, the 2 recommendations. Anyone feeling moved? Does anyone want to clarify?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the Woodbury First Edition final replat and final major PUD amendment with the concrete paver recommended conditions applied.
Does that work for us as written, or do we need Sage to read them out?
For the record, it'd be good to note that that includes that the pavers would be set in concrete and that the developer/association will be responsible for long-term maintenance.
And those conditions be that the paver shall be installed upon a layer of concrete to prevent settling, and that the developer shall enter into an agreement which requires the long-term maintenance of the pavers to be a responsibility of the developer.
Thank you, Sage. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Drew. Any further discussion?
Well, I'd like to be clear, that's the developer or homeowners association.
That's,
That is.
well, so Bill, go for it.
If it may help, yeah, and we will work that out. So this will become a condition of the development agreement, and that
Okay.
runs with the land and the future owners of the property. So it will ultimately be the association long-term that will be responsible. We'll make sure that we note that in the development agreement that will come for the council here probably in the next meeting or 2.
Does that work for you, Evan?
Yes.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
I have-
Sandra, sure.
Just to clarify, the reason that I was against that is just that I think that long-term is long-term and it's a lot more than 30 years. And that's why I didn't want the pavers to be there, because I do think that there is opportunity for them to disintegrate more. They get slick, they're rough, and they do start to sink. And then there may not be a homeowners association anymore at that point. And that is my concern.
Okay, I've got a motion from Sage. I'm sorry, did we get a second? Thank you, Drew. All right, any further discussion before we go to my high-tech vote randomizer? Okay, Bryce.
Aye.
Sage.
Aye.
Sandra.
No.
Drew.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
That motion passes. Okay, groovy. Thank you, Levi. Thank you, Mike. We move on to item number 5, which is task order number 27 for the Moscow Water Reclamation Facility, the effluent filtration, dewatering system, and disinfection system improvements with Evan Timar. I get it wrong every time. Timer? Tamar. See?
Timar.
We'll just go with Evan. Welcome, Evan.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff, members of the community. My name is Evan Timar. I'm the Public Utility Manager with the Sewer Division. I'm going to talk about Task Order 27, which is the design phase and bidding services for the effluent filtration, dewatering system, and disinfection system improvements. So why this project is needed, it was a recommendation in the 2022 Water Reclamation Facility Plan update. It addresses aging infrastructure, nearing or exceeding their years of service. The filtration systems at 16 years of service, and the dewatering and scrubber system are at 30 years of service. It maintains regulatory compliance and operational reliability, and it positions the city for future growth and treatment requirements. This is overall, the facility was kind of phased in 3 different groups. The oldest components of it are from 1996 that we still currently have. And then you move to 2001, where we had a major biological upgrade at the facility. And then the most recent is the filtration system in 2010. Vicinity-wise, for the work that's going to be that we would want to have taken place would be at the filtration system right here in this zone. The dewatering components consist of this area in the press building, then the storage holding tanks and blower area, small area over here for pumping all of the return waste back to the start of the facility, and then this area over here for disinfection. Froze. There we go. Effluent filtration overview. So a component of this task order 27, it has future planning evaluation. So conceptual level design of an enclosure for this filtration system. A majority of the filtration system is exposed just through grading to the elements throughout the year. And so we'd like to get that covered, as well as the current 5 existing filters that are in service with the remaining 3 future bays for expansion. The plate settler demolition, there's a plate settler that is constructed over on the eastern region of the filtration system. We would like to take that down. That was installed and constructed as a part of this original filtration system. It has not been used since 2013. So the plan was to run a couple passes through this filter system due to sludge accumulation. That hasn't been the case for us, so we stopped putting money into the operation of that equipment and felt that it was better suited to not utilize that with those costs. And so we would like to tear that down and then move over our aluminum sulfate storage tank, which is down over here. So that way we can have better containment in this region. So all the piping and the structure itself is contained in case of any breaks or spills. And then also we can just gravity that into the alum pumps rather than having to pump that up and over to the filtration area. The effluent filtration design work would consist of replacing all the support equipment, so valves, actuators, compressors, the pumps, turbidimeter relocation to get those out of the electrical building, and then all of the control systems, electrical equipment. The dewatering system, that was originally constructed in 1996. It consists of belt filter presses, the conveyor system, polymer system, plant drain system, and the biosolids storage blower and diffusers. Some of the background on that, the 2 belt filter presses that we have, we can only operate one at a time. That's mainly due to polymer system constraints and the drainage of the building. It doesn't allow for enough water to exit the building as those presses run. The dewatering system improvement scope, it's rehabilitation of the 2 belt filter presses out there. We feel like that'd be the best use of our money rather than going with a completely different dewatering process. Replace the conveyor, replace the polymer system, and to support dual press operation, upgrade the filtrate yard piping, which is all the drainage water from that building, and then assess and replace the drain pump station to the entire facility, which is where the majority of this water goes. Replace all the grinders, blowers, and diffusers as well. There is major electrical upgrades to the main and local control panels to this press building. It upgrades the programmable logic controllers, the MCC panels, the VFDs, lighting, and ventilation to the building. Replaces all the corroded wasteways. It's a very wet environment in that building, and so that is definitely a necessity. As far as building improvements, it replaces roll-up door actuators as well due to a lot of water that goes through that building, and evaluate and improve the heating and ventilation systems. The conveyor carries that sludge outside of the building, and so there's large openings into that building to allow for that. So we currently supplement with additional heating. Disinfection system scrubber. This is probably the most straightforward component of this task order, but this scrubber was originally constructed in 1996. It's in-kind replacement of this emergency scrubber. This takes caustic or sodium hydroxide and it neutralizes the chlorine and sulfur dioxide gas that we utilize out there. And then so it allows that to safely evacuate that into the air without that being a contaminant. And so it would be rehabilitation of the concrete containment structure that's around that scrubber and installation of new electrical and control systems to that as well. The benefit to the city, it's improved system reliability and operational flexibility for us, reduces risk of equipment failure and emergency repairs, helps us continue regulatory compliance and cost-effective use of our existing infrastructure that's out there. With that, I would recommend acceptance of the agreement in the amount of $1,204,300.
That
That
number?
figure right there. It's a lot of talking. Or provide staff with further direction.
Beautiful. And I just want to clarify, that was also in the packets, the fiscal impact is outlined. This money is coming out of the sewer capital budget. So, because I know that's a common question of where the money come from, and we have the money, and it is, the sewer capital budget is for things like this, which was outlined and recommended in the 2020 water reclamation facility plan. So, questions from council for Evan. Scott?
How long will the design take, and then when do you anticipate, when the design's completed, those improvements taking place?
Yeah, so the Task Order 27, we outlined 12 months from the start of acceptance of that. And then we would work through the bidding services. So that would probably take a couple of months just due to approval of obviously this process, and then procurement of equipment, which would likely take a little bit of time. So I would anticipate us running into fall of 2027 at the earliest.
Any follow-up, Scott? Okay, any other questions from council?
I just have a comment.
Sure, Sage.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for presenting all this. This is admittedly, the engineering behind these systems is a little over my head, but I appreciate the way you've broken this down for us and explained the need for some of these updates to occur. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
To add on to Sage, again, this came to us last week from the administrative committee, so I'm appreciative of you coming back. And one reason why we wanted to bring it to full council was the price tag and have more of an open conversation up here amongst all of us. And I thought it was interesting, if you don't mind speaking to it, with some of these necessary improvements and the design for these necessary improvements, the inverse of kind of like the standards by which we have to adhere to and kind of the penalties that we incur if we don't adhere to those standards, right? So it's not that we're just throwing potential money at problems that don't exist. It's like to stay in compliance, because the alternative is incredibly costly.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, we've done the best we can maintaining the equipment, getting the optimal amount of life out of each one of these processes. And yeah, at this point, we are in need of a general overall upgrade to not truncate the repairs of these systems or do emergency repairs. And yeah, like you said, we also, as a component of this, have to go through the construction phasing services of ensuring that this work's done appropriately to where we're not taking these systems offline and not able to do this work. Obviously, sewage continues to flow; it does not stop. These processes have to continue, and so that's a big component of this as well. Yeah,
Evan.
As Sage alluded to, this for us is just a big black box where sewage goes in and we hope something other than sewage comes out. So, and we're going to get a plan to help us do that. You mentioned something about electrical upgrades. The wastewater treatment plant is the city's biggest electric draw. Will we see any improvement in that? Is that part of our concept?
there's a potential for a small improvement. We have one of the components is the sludge holding tanks. Though we have currently blowers running at full speed to add air into those tanks for the microorganisms, and so there is a possibility of running those on variable frequency drives to be able to use less capacity of those blowers. They will be analyzing that. There's a couple components that it's due to what type of diffuser you have to disperse the air out of those blowers. So it's a possibility, but it's not
TBD.
not likely outside of that.
Okay.
So another
Sure.
then, it's an expensive plan and I understand the need for it. Does the plan have longevity?
Yeah, certainly. As a part of the facility plan update, we look at, we certainly project where we'll be at with each one of these processes to assure that we have capacity in those systems. And then that one being issued a brand new permit, that we will be in compliance with that permit as well. And so we're assuring that we have necessary capacity for each one of those processes and how they all work together, because each one of those processes impacts they all send water back to the start of that facility and keep that in circulation. And so we look at every single aspect of those to ensure that we're going to be in compliance for the future, and certainly our planning period of this project.
So with this plan, if we have some unexpected problem with one of the smaller systems within the big system, we can just go ahead and trade that out, repair it, and still be under the coverage of this plan, it's for some unexpected.
I don't, well, I guess it wouldn't be covered necessarily under this task order. If it was like an emergency failure of a different component of the facility, I guess that would have to be something we would analyze outside of this scope of work specifically. But we do have a lot of, essentially the entire facility is hashed out over the next 7 years or so, that in our current capital plan. So we have all of the allocated funding that we believe will be required to essentially rehabilitate the entire facility to bring it back up to almost new. So the hope is things can hang in there till each of these projects comes in at their due capital year for that work.
Thanks, Evans squared. Other see what I, yep. Other questions? Evan, one more.
And this is probably more for Bill. So we've been accumulating money in the capital fund or in the enterprise fund for this for a number of years. So once this is paid for, and that the source of that funding is largely through the city utility bill.
So correct.
So at the completion of this, do we anticipate rethinking the amount we charge for that city utility bill, the sewer component of it? Because we've been paying in advance for this, and we're thinking we're going to have a system now that has a long lifetime and a plan that has longevity also. So do we anticipate a reduction in those rates?
So we do a rate study every 5 years, and that rate study anticipates long-term capital improvements that we expect in the facility over a 20 to 30-year time period, so we can have a plan of how we're going to fund those improvements. This is just a portion of improvements that facility will need over the course of the next 10 to 20 years. So there will be projects beyond this scope that is contemplated in the design agreement today. So those rates are always reviewed every 5 years. They're always informed by the plans that you'll see just after this item this evening, the comprehensive water and sewer plans, or for the WRF itself, we have the water reclamation facility, long-term facility plan that's identified those needed improvements. And so every time we go through that rate study every 5 years, those improvements are taken into consideration in setting rates to ensure that we can both pay for the operations of the utility as well as continue to contribute funding or use debt services if that's what we anticipate in those projects over that time period. So I'm not going to guarantee the rates will go down. Sewer rates have been increasing at a fairly modest rate of 2.25% over the last 5 years. We do expect that to be the rate continuing moving forward. And that will provide us with the funding necessary to continue to make those improvements and even some larger scale that we may have to incur debt to fund.
Thank you. And thank you.
Drew.
Yeah, I think for the conversation and what we're talking about is we are being good stewards and saving money for capital projects. And with that, I would make a motion to approve the agreement in the amount of $1,200,000, $204,300. I got you, Evan.
I love it. Motion from Drew, and I have a second from Sandra. Any further discussion before the high-tech vote randomizer? All right. Scott.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Sage.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you, Evan. And
Thank you,
item. I lost my own agenda. Sorry, folks. We're on item number 6, the last on the agenda, which is the Comprehensive Water and Sewer System Plans Project with Tyler Palmer. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very happy to be here tonight at the culmination of a long and arduous journey, which is a rewrite of our water and sewer comp plans, an update of our water and sewer comp plans. we've, I suppose, had enough excitement tonight. And so Public Works, we're good at giving you a healthy dose of boring but important. And so that's what we're going to do now, is some boring but important. Yeah, there's nothing really glamorous about updating comp plans, but this is part of a process of maintaining utilities that have to just keep working all the time. These are systems that it requires a lot of planning. It doesn't just happen. These are, water and sewer services are something that a lot of our residents don't think about all that often, but they don't think about it that often because it just works, and it works consistently. And that's something that is a primary function of local government. It's really one of the backbone things that we do is provide these services. And these are the plans, the long-term plans for these utilities that help us make sure that we can do that. And so it's an opportunity for us to back up and take a more holistic look at each of these utilities. And assess what the needs are going to be. How are we looking? What are the growth patterns? Where are we seeing issues? We do comprehensive modeling of the system so that we can take a look and have a good model so that we can predict the behavior of the system, so that we can anticipate the needs of the system. We can look at where growth is likely to happen, make sure that we can provide the utilities for those areas. And so it's a really critical process. The last time these plans were updated was the sewer plan in late 2011, and then the water plan was adopted in 2012. These plans are also required. It's also very important for these plans that they're required for a lot of funding mechanisms that are outside of city utility rates. So, for example, the State Revolving Loan Fund, many grants require that we have up-to-date plans. Once the plan is adopted by City Council, it then gets submitted down to the Department of Environmental Quality, and they also conduct a review to make sure that it is in compliance with all of the requirements that they have. And so we're happy to re-engage in this process. It does require a lot of staff time and a lot of time with a consultant to work through this. Accuracy is really important as we work through these plans. It's certainly a case of that we want to have good information going in so that we get good information coming out. So even in preparation prior to kicking off the planning process, our staff conducts routine updates of mapping, making sure that we have accurate maps of our system so that what we get in a model is accurate as it comes out the back end. And so with that context, what I'd like to do is turn it over to our consultants who helped us work through these plans, this water and sewer plan. The city entered into a contract with HDR to conduct these plans, and they will walk you through their findings, assumptions, and the recommendations that are contained in here, and then we'll come back and field any questions you might have.
Thanks, Tyler.
Welcome to the dais. I don't know if this is all counting as a dais, but welcome. We can't wait to hear from you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tyler, for that rousing introduction of boring. And Mayor, Council, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Jeff Hansen with HDR Engineering. I'll kick off talking about the water plan, and then I'm going to hand it off to Angela Taylor to talk about sewer. So comprehensive water system plan, I'll hit a little bit more about why we do this. I mean, Tyler really set it up, but we'll talk a little bit more about the purpose and intent of the water plan. And then we'll talk about some fundamental components, water demand and water conservation. Those are key elements of this plan. And then we'll talk about the system analysis, that's identifying deficiencies. And then that leads into the development of a capital improvement program. And so then we'll talk about where we're going from here once council adopts the plan. So purpose of the comprehensive water system plan, as Tyler said, it's really that big picture, holistic look to guide long-term water utility planning. For both these plans, water and sewer, we looked at a 50-year time horizon. So we're looking out to make sure the city is well suited over that time period to provide reliable water and sewer service. We're identifying system deficiencies, updating the capital improvement program, and as Tyler indicated, we're also ensuring that we're meeting state requirements. So quickly, a little bit of background on the city's existing water system. As you all know, the city receives its water from groundwater, currently utilizing 6 active groundwater wells, withdrawing water from 2 different aquifer systems. The system has many components. Some of the key elements are 3 tanks, 3 large water reservoirs that store about 4.5 million gallons of water. There's about 100 miles of piping, and there's booster stations to move that water into higher elevation areas throughout the city. The chart here just demonstrates over the past 10 years where that water is coming from. I mentioned there's 2 different aquifers. The majority of the water that the city's receiving now comes from the deeper, what we call the Grand Ronde aquifer. Historical water consumption has stayed fairly consistent, or if anything, has decreased a little bit if we look back over the past decade. And that's largely due to the effects of water conservation. And so you see that in that bar chart there. Very roughly, annually, the city is utilizing about 770 million gallons of water a year. And that translates into about 2 million gallons of water every day. Okay. And of course, that peaks in the summer when we have more outdoor water usage. That about doubles during the summertime. And then that pie chart there shows where's that water being used. About 50% of the water used in the city is by single family residential. And then the rest is fairly evenly split between multifamily residential and commercial uses. So that's just a little bit of background on what the water system is and how water is currently being used. But the water plan is really focused on the future. And again, we're looking out 50 years. The crystal ball is not very crystal clear. And so there's a range of potential growth. In capital planning like this, we skew towards that higher end to be safe in terms of capacity and capital planning. So working with city planning staff, these plans are rooted in an assumption of essentially an annual growth rate of about 1% per year, okay, in residential and commercial growth, with that growth occurring primarily on the periphery of the city. Angela is going to show a similar graphic on sewer. In this chart, you see kind of hatched areas around the periphery of the city, and that just indicates different developments that are in various stages of planning or design or a conceptual development. And so we think about what are the potential time horizons for those pockets of growth and what does that mean for the water utility. So that kind of periphery of the city is kind of a big focus of the water plan. A fundamental piece of the plan is our water demand forecast, and that is projecting how do we see water needs growing in time. And I'm seeing now this chart doesn't show our dates. That vertical black line that is separating actual from forecast, that's 2024, okay? And then you go out 50 years to 2075 at the far hand right part of that column or part of that chart. And so you just see fairly linear growth in water demand. And this is a fundamental piece that then drives everything else that we do. I mentioned earlier that a key element of this plan, a key element of how the city manages its water resources is water conservation. The city has a very active water conservation program. It's rooted in your 2016 water conservation plan, which is undergoing some updates currently. So this water plan, this water comprehensive plan, documents what you have done and what you're currently doing and recognizes that you're going to be doing even different things into the future. That water conservation program has many different elements to it, including low flow devices, distribution of toilet leak detection, and also your rates. Your rate structure is designed so as to provide a pricing signal for water usage, especially during the summer months. And it's had a positive impact. There's lots of lines on that chart there, but if you focus on that green line that's the lowest, that's an indication of where your water needs have been in the recent few years and how they're underneath the red line, which is the target to stay within. So just demonstrating the positive benefit of water conservation. One of the key elements of the water plan is to think about where are you getting your water and how reliable will that be into the future. When we look at your current groundwater supplies, both from a legal perspective, your water rights, and the physical pumping capacity of your wells, those supplies are sufficient for that 50-year planning horizon. However, the city recognizes that to maintain for a long term, beyond those 50 years, a sustainable water supply, additional supply will be needed at some point to help mitigate the observed long-term trend of declining aquifer levels in the Palouse. So as many of you know, the city, working with its partners at the Palouse Basin Aquifer Committee, has over the decades been evaluating options to address that long-term supply. This plan discusses that dynamic and the fact that PBAC is currently focusing on evaluating the feasibility of a Clearwater River withdrawal to provide that surface water supplemental source. So this plan discusses that. Moving from supply into storage, I mentioned that there are storage facilities throughout the city providing over 4 million gallons of storage, but we look at the ability of those facilities to meet future needs. Storage is important. It provides water at certain elevations to maintain pressure in the system, provides flow for fire suppression, for emergency needs, and to meet growth. Currently, the city's storage facilities are sufficient to meet existing needs and into roughly the next 20 years. We do start to see, as growth occurs at about the 20-year mark, the likely need for additional storage. It's not a pressing need right at this moment, but it signals the need to start planning and budgeting for additional storage. So this plan highlights that. We move now from storage into the distribution system. So that's the pumping and piping network that delivers water throughout the city. There are various regulatory criteria that system must meet. Pressure requirements, flow requirements during fire flow events. To analyze that, the city over a decade ago constructed a hydraulic model of the system. And that model has been routinely updated throughout time. And we use that to evaluate the ability of the system under various scenarios to meet certain needs. The bottom line is the system overall is functioning very well and is well suited to into the future. There are small pockets in the city, for example, of high elevation where the pressures are a little bit low, but for the majority of the system, in good shape. In areas where we have lower than desired fire flow availability, we identify recommended improvements, and that gets folded into the capital improvement program. Speaking of which, a big part of this plan, this is not defining budget, but this is defining long-term capital improvement plan upon which future budgeting can be informed by. And so you'll see here in a table summarizing that over the next 10 years, this plan contemplates approximately $30 million of investment in the water system to meet those current and identified future needs. And then beyond the 10-year time frame, another $35 million in improvements. It's a variety of improvements, many of them in the near term focused on upgrades to wells and well treatment, power upgrades, and then into the future, those newer storage facilities that I mentioned earlier, and then pipeline improvements throughout. So that is really kind of the capstone of the water plan, is the development of that CIP, the capital improvement plan. And where do we go from here? I mentioned it, and Tyler mentioned it too. Once the city adopts this plan, then it goes on to the state for review and final approval, and then it provides your roadmap into the future. So with that, that's my quick flyover of the water plan. And I would take any questions at this time before we transition to sewer.
Sure, Sage.
Jeff, thank you for breaking this down for us. Quick question. You had touched on presently that we have about 4 million gallons of storage. Is that right? And that at about 20 years, there'd be a need for additional storage. Do you have a sense of how much more additional storage? Just out of curiosity.
Right. So if I remember correctly, when we hit the 20-year mark, this is all predicated on that projected growth, right? That 1% annual growth.
Right. Yeah.
At 20 years, I think we see a deficiency of on the order of 0.2 million gallons. So like 200,000 gallons. And then that grows over time. But if that gives you kind of a sense, you have between 4 or 4.5 million gallons currently, and we see a deficiency of 0.2 at the 20-year mark. 0.15. Yeah.
Thank you.
Drew?
Thanks, Jeff, for the presentation, and it's a great way to lay out what you guys studied. Wasn't boring at all, but I also love infrastructure. So I'm an infrastructure nerd by heart, so it was great. I was fascinated. I was wondering, I didn't see the slide number, but it was the water. It was the graph where you showed like the different user groups. There's orange at the top. Yeah, this one right here.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, non-revenue. Yeah, I'm not, could you walk me through that just a little bit?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't describe that.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. So when we assess water systems, that is a portion of the water that is withdrawn from the wells that is not sold and billed. So it's water, some of that water is lost due to leaks, or it's used by uses that aren't tracked, and that's very small.
Right.
But that's what that means, non-revenue. The city's not getting revenue for that.
From that.
It's the difference between water production from the wells and water consumption by your customers.
All
There's a
right.
delta there.
Yeah, there's your delta. And I know this is getting like very granular, so if there's not an answer, it's fine. But I was just wondering where we see that dip. So you said that black line was like 24 roughly. So towards the end of 23 and the orange where it dipped, do we know what? And sorry to put you on the spot
Yeah.
right there. I'm a little, not that we're going to do anything about it, but I'm just curious what the dip.
The outlier is.
Yeah, what the outlier.
Right. You know, I might have to defer to some of my water colleagues here because I don't recall offhand. Now this, and I will say though, non-revenue, it varies,
Yeah,
right?
right,
It
right,
is
yeah.
variable. And there was an earlier slide, we showed that on average, the city is at about 6% of
Right.
here I refer to it as distribution system leakage.
Yeah.
It's kind of an industry threshold of 10%. You want to try to stay under 10%. And the city's doing pretty well.
Yeah, 6 is great. Yeah.
And that there's just inherent variability. And I don't know offhand if there was a specific reason for that little dip. I don't know if Tyler, you have.
Yeah, so that year we saw, you'll notice the dip kind of reflects through all user groups in that year. It's a little bit more acute with the non-revenue water, but there's a dip that year. We had a particularly wet year. We didn't see a lot of water use that year. And the non-revenue numbers can be influenced by a number of things. For example, the fire department activities can influence you. We have a big leak, a single big water leak can really influence the non-revenue quite a bit. So that number can vary a little bit more year to year, but then also there's, variability in consumption pretty drastically impacted by how dry the year is when the precipitation comes.
And I want to piggyback off of this topic because my guess would be that assuming some of these capital improvement proposal and projects were seen through, some of these things like a water main replacement would potentially reduce our percentage of DSL, whatever that wasn't. Did I guess that acronym
DSL.
right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So leakage.
Certainly can. And more importantly, too, just staying ahead of things, right? Routine replacement of aging infrastructure so that number doesn't get higher, that DSL number.
Any other
Thank you for
questions?
that, answering those granular questions. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Jeff, thanks for the presentation. And I'm really glad that you highlighted the city's conservation tactics and how to get the community on board. And just with the steady growth that we do have as a community, but also kind of like the way that the community is, intentionally bought into a lot of the conservation methods is really great. So I'm really happy to hear that you highlighted that. And that's a really good compliment to Tyler and his team and Kelly in particular, and just kind of all the outreach that's been done. And I'm excited to see that continuing on into the future. So thanks for highlighting that.
Thank you, Bryce. Okay, anything before we switch gears? Scott, what do you have?
I'm an engineer, so I could listen to this like all day. A couple of things. Part of the comp plan is, I know looking at our development areas, I mean, there's definitely things that is going to create other studies and other things. I know I've worked on other projects in the past, but just because we have this comp plan now, there's still intermediate check-ins and other things that go on throughout. I mean, this plans were from 2011 or 2012.
Yeah.
You guys are still, probably involved in, and we're still looking at things throughout this whole process.
Yeah, 100%. So this is one of those every 10 or so year check-ins, but then the city is routinely using that tool that I mentioned earlier, that water hydraulic model, to evaluate impacts of development, how best to serve new development, because things change, right? And so the city and staff are always using those tools to reassess. Yeah.
And the other, it's more of like a comment. With the city, in these developments that come on, there's an impact that the development has itself, as well as the city system that needs improvements as well. So there's always that element that the developer does play a part. It's not like the city is fronting the entire bill for every development out there. There's always a give and take of the impacts from the development as well as from the city. So.
Yes, and in fact, I didn't detail it here, but in the capital improvement plan element of the water comp plan, it breaks down and identifies potential developer projects and developer contributed capital, because that is an important piece of it. And so we distinguish what are those capital projects that the city would bring forward versus what are developers bringing forward to make it happen.
Great point, Scott. Okay, anything else before we switch to Angela with the sewer system plan? Going once, going twice. Okay, groovy. We'll switch gears
All
over
right.
to
you, Jeff.
the
All right, Angela.
sewer system plan.
All right, thanks for having us, Mayor and City Council and those in the audience. My name is Angela Taylor. I'm with Keller Associates. We were a subconsultant to HDR on this project specific to the sewer conveyance system for the entire city. I can work it. All right, so I'll just briefly go over the scope of work, what the purpose of the project was, what the study area is. We've developed the system modeling to look at existing conditions and future conditions, and then talking about that capital improvement plan that informs your rates. So some of the major tasks we included were an RFI to the city, request for information, so that we got all the mapping, all the recent developments within the city. So just a data acquisition and review. We had to troubleshoot a lot with Evans Group for pipe sizing because some of the GIS wasn't translating properly. Then we developed planning criteria so that when we get the model up and running, we know what we're looking at for deficiencies. To calibrate the model, we had to do flow monitoring. So we went out in the field, we installed these flow monitors with the help of Evan's team, Mark Branscom's team in particular. They did all the heavy lifting, and we had the data loggers in place for about 6 weeks because we wanted to look at dry and wet conditions. We did a brief overview of the environmental resources in the city. So just looking at floodplains and your water system, all of that stuff. System conditions assessment. So that included like CCTV footage review. So we looked at a few hours of that just to assess where there's issues. Interviewed the city maintenance staff to make sure that they're not seeing any areas. So just looking at that. Then we developed the model, did the calibration, ran the scenarios, and looked for improvements. So where are we seeing those trigger points over the planning horizons? So we looked at the 10-year planning horizon, the 20-year planning horizon, and the 50-year. With that, we developed a capital improvement plan that we also shared with FCS for the rate study. So we're not working in our black box totally. All right, so the purpose of this project, well, DEQ requires you to have an approved facility plan. Again, Tyler mentioned the additional funding mechanisms outside of rates and outside of the money that you've put in the bank to cover these projects. You can go after grants if you have an approved city or an approved facility plan. We follow the IDAPA process, the IDAPA code, to make sure that we're hitting all those marks. And also your last plan was completed in 2011. So it's well overdue. It was time to get a new refresh on the system. Plus you guys had taken care of all of the CIP from the last plan. So what do you have to work on? So, all right, this is just a brief study area. Of course, it's the city limits. The lines on there are color coded for the pipe sizing. I'm not intending for you guys to be able to tell the pipes from there. All right. These are some of the planning criteria that we use, assessment criteria for when we're modeling. Obviously, we want a minimum sewer main size, a minimum sewer service size. And then there's the 10 states slope recommendations. So we always follow those guidelines. And then for lift stations, we look at a force main with a velocity of 2 feet per second minimum. So that's that flushing capacity, so you don't get sediment buildup. And then for the actual capacity of the gravity pipes, we look at a D over capital D of 75%. That's kind of the trigger where you start look at upsizing that pipe. Once you reach that 90% capacity, that's when it's critical. You need to upsize the pipe. You'll notice on the picture on the right, this is some of the I&I work that the city crews have been doing. I call it the Pink Panther spray, but it basically keeps water from coming into your manholes from the ground. There are elevated groundwater areas in Moscow, springs and whatnot. All right, so we use HDR's population projections. Jeff already went over this. So a 1% annual growth rate. And you see our growth for 2025, 2035, up through 2075. So we're gaining about 12,000 people over the next 50 years. But again, that's theoretical. So these are the areas, and this coincides with Jeff's growth mapping. And if you go into our plan, the yellow, red, and blue correspond to residential, multifamily, and commercial. And then we also have the planning timelines on there. So your 10-year, your 20-year, and your 50-year. All right, so then we get into our system modeling. So your existing conditions. We develop the model, we calibrate it with the flow monitoring, and we also did a lift station testing. Once it's all calibrated, this goes into the calibration. So these are the basins that we put the flow monitoring equipment in. And again, I mentioned that we wanted to look at a wet weather and a dry weather window so that we understand if there are I&I influences. A couple places where we did see a lot of I&I was at Spence and at the 6th Street. It was vastly different looking into those manholes after a rainstorm. A couple days after that rainstorm, you could definitely see the flows had increased quite a bit. And that's not just your customer base that's increasing those flows. Nobody's just turning on their shower after a rainstorm. So it is I&I, infiltration and inflow, coming into your system. So maintaining your pipes, doing some trenchless technology for pipelining. Where you need to, you can do a trenched rehab of the pipes, or if you're upsizing, that would be a good idea. All right, so the lift station testing, I just want to note that Logos and Eddington were not online at the time we did the lift station testing. But you can see here that the mall lift station is right at capacity. Luckily, you guys are already in design and construction starts this summer. So you guys are already ahead of the game there. Existing conditions. As you can see, there's a surcharged manhole right near the mall lift station, so on the west side of town. This is current day. Before that's improved. Then if you take the model further into the future, we look at the 10-year, and you see some surcharging. This is assuming on the left that the lift station wasn't improved. So you've got surcharging on the manholes from the west and the east. So you're upsizing the lift station. You're also upsizing the force main from that lift station to the plant. Another recommendation we have at this 10-year mark is to upsize that main that's east of the lift station to an 18-inch main. On the 20-year horizon, you're still seeing that surcharging in the manholes that are west of the mall lift station. That's really the critical area at the 20-year horizon. And then similarly at the 50-year horizon, if you don't do anything and you have all the development that we've been told could potentially happen, then you're still seeing some issues there. So this is what we're looking at. We use this system modeling to look at capital improvements. So these are some of the priorities that we look at. So we're looking at lift stations, we're looking at city planned projects, we're looking at deficiencies. There's a prioritization of 1 to 4, and 4 is like you're really far out there stuff, your 50-year stuff. All right, so again, you really can't see this at this level, and I apologize, but this breaks down everything that we've recommended in the plan. For the 10-year, you've got your mall lift station upgrades, you've got the mall trunk main upgrades, and then formalizing an agreement with University of Idaho. That would be great, because right now it's mostly just a handshake between UI dumping their sewer into the city of Moscow's system. So it would be nice if there was a more formalized agreement there. And then the city has always expressed interest in taking the southeast lift station and bypassing it with a gravity line. Gravity lines are much easier to maintain. So we would design the southeast lift station, gravity to the south lift station. And then on your priority 2 improvements, of course, that's just another facility plan update in 10 years. Same on the priority 3 horizon. But then as you get to the priority 3 horizon, you start to look at some of the development around the university. So Railroad Street, College Street, Deacon, with all that student housing that's going in and the planned development east side of Paradise Creek, that would be triggered. There could be some cost sharing there. I know they're using a public-private partnership right now to develop the housing. So maybe some of that could be pushed on the developer. So, and then of course you've got your priority 4, and those are all the 50-year. So we will get this to DEQ. They will review it. The city council will adopt it, and then it's up to the city to execute the plan. And you guys have done a great job in the past, so I have no issues with that. With that said, do you guys have any questions for me? Very exciting
On the
stuff.
comprehensive sewer plans. Sure, go ahead, Sage.
So you had mentioned 10 states standard pipe
Yeah.
slope. Could you just break that down a tiny bit?
So it's like, what is it?
Yeah.
Minnesota. It's all these like Midwest states that got together and they did this big study and they came up with the very minimum pipe slopes that provide that flushing capacity.
Okay.
It's very minimal. You would be
Okay.
surprised. So like a 12-inch pipe is what, 0.004 or something like that. It's not even a 1% slope.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying
and
that.
we did find some deficiencies in some of your slopes within the city.
I wasn't sure if that was a, state of flow reference or
Nope.
literal
Nope.
states.
No,
that
it's
is a
just,
reference to an
it's like,
agreement. Okay.
it's just a general engineering guideline. Like everybody uses it. Centur uses it. JUV uses it. The Scott Bontrager uses it.
Great. That's
I
great.
mean, it's engineering speak for that's what we do.
Okay, thanks. And I have one
Sure.
more follow-up question. So you had mentioned the recommendation of a formalized agreement with
Yeah.
U of I. Do you or maybe someone at city staff have any sense of who administers that? And also would that come before council to formalize?
Yeah, so with the University of Idaho, obviously they represent a decent chunk of our flow. They have an independent water system, and they have an independent collection system, but then their collection system drains into our collection system and then into our treatment system. And so we've always, as with a lot of things with the University of Idaho, over time, there's just been a development of an agreement. There's been a lot of different angles that have been looked at to try and determine what the appropriate flow number is. And years and years and years ago, there was a settled upon percentage that the university represented of the city's flows. That has been the agreement that's been in place, and that has dictated the cost. That percentage cost is what has been applied for their contribution to our system. But we think that there are probably some mechanisms that can better and more accurately capture that flow, and that it would be better to have a more formal agreement rather than a tacit agreement with the University of Idaho. And so that's something that we've had some preliminary discussions both internally and with the university on, and it would be an agreement that would come to council. We'd put together the terms of the agreement, come to agreement with the University of Idaho, and bring it through the city council. Okay. Thanks.
Sure, Drew.
One, thanks for presentation is laid out nicely and could understand it. I'm really good and also a fun project.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got to see the manholes.
Yeah.
That's why I put some pictures up here because you guys don't often.
We don't
see
get to
that.
Yeah, we don't see that much for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And then I'll just make a comment, not needing the answer, but the RFI to the city, I would not want to be the recipient or receiving. That's a big RFI.
It was huge.
Yeah, which is good.
Jeff did a good job of keeping us all in line and making sure that everybody tracked.
Yeah.
Sandra.
Yeah, and again, this is just a comment. Thanks for this. When I give presentations or talk to classes, whether they're with like 6-year-olds or like League of Women Voters that I have no idea what the age is and everything in between, everyone says, "What are things that keep you up at night?" And I, with just like that, I say sewage.
Mhm.
And then they freak out. I go, don't panic, we're on it. And it's because of things like this. And I really am grateful, because I'm not kidding. That is the thing that worries me at weird times the most, especially after like big rains or whatever. And I'm really happy that I can say, no, it's okay, we're on it. I like to worry ahead of time. So, I'm taking care of it for
Preemptive
you.
worrying.
Yes,
I like
preemptive
it.
worry. So thank you.
like 50 years, right?
Yeah, no, I thought it was at 30, so 50. Oh man, I'm good.
I love it. Any other questions? Sure, Evan.
This is just for me. When you mentioned that we have several areas where pipe capacity might be an issue, where you get over the 90%, is that measured as a singular event, or is it an average that's taken through that small system of pipe? And is there something you can do with removing sediment that would remediate that?
Well, the city does, they often are cleaning the pipes. So yeah, you can try to maintain it that way. But once you have so much flow going through there, it just starts to back up into the manholes. So that's why we use that trigger.
And the 75 or the 90% thresholds that cause us some alarm,
Yeah.
that's looking at the biggest event then. So you're alarmed if one time a month it hits that. Okay.
All right. Any other further questions? Anyone feeling movie?
I have no questions, but
Sure.
thank you, Angela, and thank you, Jeff and Tyler. And I move that we adopt the updated comprehensive water and sewer system plans.
Second.
Who wants it? Okay, Sage gets the second. Motion from Bryce. Any further discussion before the high-tech vote randomizer? All right, here we go. Sage.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Bryce.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Evan.
Aye.
Beautiful. Passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
And
Yep, thank you.
how do we feel about holding reports
I
for the
was just
next
gonna ask if
meeting?
we could, Madam
Okay,
Mayor.
okay, so we'll package all of our reports and we'll have a full roster at the next city council meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Sandra, do I have a second? Second from Sage. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I want to stay.